Your power isn't in resisting your shadow, it's in meeting it with love. Today we're talking about key number 6 in the Empowered Communication series, release and transmute energy. And this is actually very closely tied to step number 4 with the intentional living model. Step number 4 is release that which is no longer needed. And so, people sometimes have trouble understanding how this works, and we've talked about it a little bit with the elevated thought model, because we've talked about the fact that the goal is actually not to stay in the unhindered state all of the time, because that's just not reasonable. You're going to have moments where, something hits you and you find yourself in a hindered or a constricted state. It's more about the awareness and staying present so that you can see when that happens, so that you can work through what comes up when it comes up, and then you can release it or transmute it and move past it. And so understanding how to do this comes down to shadow work, which is something that I think sometimes people like to throw this around a lot, but they don't always actually know what that looks like. Like, what does it actually look like? And one of these days, I'm going to tackle sharing with you guys the 9 levels of consciousness and how I specifically do shadow work, because I tend to follow it back from the emotion to the core belief to the pattern that is looping, and then we rewrite that. And literally how it works with your shadow is, if you think about a shadow in real life, how would you get rid of a shadow if you didn't want it? You bring light, right? So when you bring that light, so when you meet your shadow with love and light, you are able to disempower any of that negative charge that might be there for you. And it doesn't mean that there isn't going to be multiple layers of this, okay? So that's fine. And some of it is also resisting the urge to put a morality judgment on what is coming up for you, because so often we have a tendency to feel something from when we were younger, and we're like, it's so stupid, why am I dealing with this? I should be past this already. And the reality is that's not helpful. And not only that, what you are telling your inner child is you are not safe to raise any issues, because you're just going to get browbeaten some more by my current self, because my current self isn't enlightened enough to understand that you need to be met with love and understanding, when you already are dealing with stuff because somebody previously didn't meet you with love and understanding. So don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Meet yourself with love. Be gentle with yourself. Speak to yourself and your inner child in the way that you would to a dear friend or loved one. Because I find when I think about how I would talk to, my closest friends and how I would encourage them, it's typically very different than what I would do to myself. And that is actually how I've begun to shift my internal dialogue and soften it, is as I've realized that my inner critic can be really sharp. So as I've learned that, I've been able to soften that by thinking, how would I speak to, such and such friend, and what would I tell them, and how would I tell them to do it? And so when we are releasing and transmuting energy, really what we are doing is seeing wow, I have pain in this area, and taking a moment to sit with that pain. What is this? Where is this pain coming from? What is happening here? And so let me just give you an example. There was a situation that I ran into where I was dealing with a high level of fear. It was with a customer interaction. This has been several years ago now. And it was a really big order. And I was like, why am I dealing with so much fear? And so I just paused and did exactly what I'm talking about here. And I took a moment and I was like, I see you. What's happening? And I realized that my fear was that for some reason, the customer would be dissatisfied and would want to get a return. And I literally did not have the money to give them a return, because I had to spend the money to fill the order. And so it was a time when things were very lean. And so it was not going to happen. And so I started thinking about that. And I thought, first of all, why am I expecting that she's not going to be satisfied with a product that I consistently have 5-star ratings on, that I'm giving, my all to, that is, that she already has some of. So why would I assume that? And secondly, why don't I come up with a creative alternative solution for if that happened? What would I offer her if I can't offer her her money back in that situation? What else could I do? So sometimes when you're in that place, if you have a tendency to kind of go to worst case scenarios, because some people are wired like that, I'm one of them, the thing that I find that helps to diffuse it the quickest is to think of, how would I handle it in that situation? Like, what is an outcome that could work for that? And that disempowers that fear, but also, just shedding light on it and realizing, like, this is just a deep-seated fear of being concerned that somebody's not going to be pleased with me, and that comes from further root issues, and then that helped me to realize I had other things I needed to unpack. But literally sitting with it and taking that time and then releasing it. Now, you have to remember, when you're doing this, that those things, whatever those beliefs are that are in place that you're addressing, are things that were put in place to help you in a season. That was your highest good in the season it was put in place. Now, that does not mean it's your highest good now. And so resist the urge to get upset with yourself over some of the beliefs that you have that might be wonky, because you might have been 5 years old when you put that belief in place, right? If you think everybody gets mad at you for everything, like, the way that you process that as a 5 or a 6-year-old is very different than how you're going to process that as a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 50-year-old, whatever. So, but it doesn't mean that you can't pause and say, thank you, belief, for having served me to the best of your ability, and I don't need you anymore. And just releasing that, right? And so that's the reason that we release those beliefs and we transmute that energy. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. And again, I share much more on my blog about shadow work. So if you want more, if you want to know more about how I do it, it's on the blog, and undoubtedly I'll talk about it here at some point too. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody, but be intentional to be kind to yourself. It's so important.